The third and final count of the presidential election in Georgia has been recertified. President-elect Joe Biden claiming victory once again over President Trump with nearly 12,000 more votes. The Secretary of State's office, which has come under attack by the president for its handling of the election, says the recertifying of ballots once again proves election integrity in the state. Joe Ripley has more now on the results.
Recertification came nearly 5 weeks after Election Day. Between then and now, a hand audit and a machine recount at the request of the Trump campaign, with the results overall the same. While the numbers changed slightly, the Secretary of State's office overseeing the election said there was no evidence of widespread fraud that would change the outcome of the presidential race here in Georgia. President-elect Joe Biden won the state by about 12,000 votes. In the days and weeks following Election Day, the Peach State has been the focus of several lawsuits seeking to overturn or invalidate the election results. One of the most high-profile cases, the Kraken lawsuit, which was dismissed by a U.S. District Court judge Monday. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger called the suit's dismissal an important day for election integrity, saying, quote, "The claims in the Kraken lawsuit proved to be as mythological as the creature for which they're named. Georgians can now move forward knowing that their votes, and only their legal votes, were counted accurately, fairly, and reliably." Federal law set today as Safe Harbor Day, or the day where all election disputes must be resolved. The next steps, Georgia's Democratic electors will head next Monday to meet with the Electoral College to officially elect Joe Biden president.
And Liza Lucas joining us live now from the 11 Alive Bridge with a breakdown of the final numbers. And Liza, the results this time around, the third time, slightly lower?
Yes, that margin was lower by about 1,700 votes. When we take into account the first count, the margin was around 13,558. The second, 12,284. And then the final margin for Joe Biden, 11,779. That is going to be the final number. And when we break it down, what we are really looking at here is about a 0.035% difference between all three counts, which is about 99.964%. So really minuscule when you consider that there were nearly 5 million votes cast in the presidential race. So again, three counts throughout this process, leading us to the same result throughout the course of this. We had that first count, the initial count, then we had that second count, which was the hand audit, and then we had the third count, which was again done by machines, leading us to a Biden victory in Georgia, 11,779 votes, which means 16 electoral votes for the state. They go to Joe Biden.
All right, Liza, thank you. And President Trump continuing his attack on Governor Kemp for not holding a special legislative session over the election. He tweeted Kemp, along with other GOP leaders, saying they will, quote, be solely responsible for the potential loss of our two great senators from Georgia, referencing the upcoming runoffs. Vice President Mike Pence will be returning to Georgia. He'll speak at another Defend the Majority rally in Augusta on Thursday. Last Friday, he attended a briefing at the CDC before heading to Savannah for a rally supporting Republican Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Former U.S. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro wrapping up his two-day campaign swing through Georgia today. He's stumping for Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Jon Ossoff. The two will pass out yard signs throughout Metro Atlanta today. Castro will then head to Gainesville for a roundtable event with Latino business owners. This is video from yesterday's event. Castro expressing the importance of Georgia's 300,000 registered Latino voters to come out to vote on January 5th.